We would be honored if you would join us.
All right, and welcome back to part 2 of the 9th episode of the Silvercast. And once again, this week we are joined by a very special guest who is not a fellow YouTube content creator. We're joined by Alex of Trade Zone 212, who is a bullion dealer. And if you did not hear the first episode, you really need to pause it right here, go listen to the first episode, and then come back, because it is filled with so much interesting information. You're not going to want to miss it. How are you doing today, Alex?
Doing great and very thankful to be invited back. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're absolutely just thrilled to have you on. And how are you doing today, Silver Conundrum?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. I got a bunch of questions for Alex and some coins I've just happened to looked up, and I want to see if he's going to be getting them or not.
All right. Well, we just want to note from the beginning that there is no, paid promotion or financial relationship going on here. As you'll hear if you go listen to part 1, Silver Conundrum formed a relationship with Alex as a satisfied customer, and we just wanted to have him on to discuss his business and multiple topics. And also please note the disclaimer that Expat, Stacker, and Silver Conundrum are not financial advisors or experts. Investing is risky and comes with the chance that you could lose money. So talk to a licensed professional before making any decisions about what to do with your money. This video and all of the contents on our channels is for entertainment and educational purposes only. It should not be taken as financial advice. And the topic that we're going to be getting into in part 2 of this episode is sort of the whole situation in the broader markets that started back really in March around 2020 and up until continuing through this day. So we've all know what's affected the world since that time, so with the pandemic and everything like that. So firstly, I just want to kind of ask you, more recently, Alex, we've seen this situation with the silver squeeze and the Wall Street bets thing and everything like that. What is your opinion of the silver squeeze? Because I've heard multiple different opinions about this kind of phenomenon, which has kind of popped up as a result of the short squeeze of GameStop and some other stocks that's gone on. So what's your take on this whole silver squeeze situation?
Well, in the most positive light, all of these motivations to counterbalance the power that larger banks have on maintaining certain levels of prices, which have been argued to be depressed when it comes to silver and gold, for example, or the power of hedge funds to be able to short certain stocks and at the same time put their expert opinion in form of a money to work, or put it where the mouth is, so to speak, by saying this company is not worth what it is. And then on the other end, you have this democratization of investing opinion and movement that's been most greatly manifested through the Reddit groups and particular contributors in recent weeks and months. That is an interesting phenomenon. It's one that needs to be approached, of course, with a great deal of caution, because it could very well collapse, or it could be not as sustainable as the GameStop example, as was manifested in the silver example, where the prices may have spiked. The underlying metal prices, the futures prices, may have spiked, but have come down to pretty much the levels that they've been at for months now. Even though silver, you mentioned over the last 12 months, silver more than doubled from the low point sometime in the beginning of last year. But at the same time, it hasn't had that skyrocketing, huge rise to 40, 50, 60, or $80 an ounce as a result of those postings and that grassroots type of movement to put us to make a real impact on silver prices. But whom that has hurt most evidently are people that are trying to stack bullion in the form of bars and in the form of coins that are most akin to buying bullion, like American Silver Eagles, for example, and that has tagged huge premiums on those items. So people aren't really buying it close to spot anymore, but they're buying it at 10 to 20% premiums over spot, which is definitely a direct effect of this move to try to destabilize to some degree and increase silver prices.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, one other interesting thing that I have kind of observed recently is that, gold and maybe slightly to a lesser extent, silver are both kind of looked at as hedges against inflation. Most financial experts and economists agree that we're staring down the barrel of inflation right now, yet gold and silver prices the spot prices are continuing to drop. And as you mentioned, the premiums are not. So there's sort of two counterintuitive things going on right there. One, as we approach a situation which everyone thinks there's going to be inflation, gold and silver price are dropping, and also the spot price, the premiums are not dropping. So have you ever seen anything like this before in your time as a collector, stacker, or also since you've been running your business?
Well, let's look at it this way. A lot of the messaging in the markets right now, what I've never seen before is the degree to which all of the information is being telegraphed to us about what's going on all over the markets. And I'll give you examples of that. But usually we're now accustomed in this day and age that only the ones with access to the greatest information, the shortest lines to the exchange and the most powerful computers can really calculate and gain from what's going on in the market. But ironically, the opposite is happening right now, which I think is putting a lot of fog out there that people cannot really see through. And here are the examples of that. You mentioned inflation. Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve Bank, and I believe this was also echoed by Janet Yellen, right, the new Treasury Secretary, the last chair of the Federal Reserve Bank of the U.S. They have basically openly said that they are abandoning for the short term one of their two key mandates, which is full employment and reasonable slow inflation. They are letting the inflation part of it go out the window for the time being in the interest of resurrecting the economy. What does that mean? More debt, more printing of the dollar, continuing easy monetary policy in the form of low interest rates, even though they've increased in treasuries and other key interest rate markets. You're still seeing very low interest rates and with no plans to increase them at this time as far as the Federal Reserve target rates that are being set. So you were having this messaging that's telling you that the dollar should be worth less by way of all of these different factors, and we're sort of are dismissing it because we're not. I just don't think we're paying attention enough to those statements, or there are very short-term reactions in the market, but the trend hasn't buckled yet. You're being told that there is a huge asset bubble out there in the stock market in particular, and that is out of the fact that all of these asset managers have to be fully or almost fully invested, and they have to make the money, their clients' money, work somehow. And the interest rates have been at rock bottom, so you need to put your money somewhere. So one thing feeds on another, and now you have this huge asset bubble, particularly in the stock market. You have a lot of credit market concerns, whether it's corporate bonds, whether it's again bulging national debt that continues to grow. You have all of these other concerns that are really not being paid attention to any more than they usually are. And then you have the silver market, which, through what we discussed before, through this intention to increase the spot prices, that hasn't happened, but now the premiums have arisen, right? So now you're once again something that was a big safe haven, and like you said, a hedge against inflation, has inflated in itself without necessarily the dollar going down the tubes or being cheaper relative to other currencies, or for any other reason that all of a sudden, let's say, more silver than ever has been discovered and now the supply has doubled in the world, right? None of those extreme events have happened. Everything's really really predictable and managed at this time, and yet you're seeing these premiums in the silver market. So there are just a bunch of, I think, within the precious metals market, particularly in the silver, and frankly, gold's been flat. If we go back to, we started talking about what's happened over the year ago, gold's basically flat. It is silver that's shown tremendous moves in different directions, primarily upward in that same period. And with that, the premiums also have increased. So I would hope, and I think it's reasonable to believe that when things calm down a little bit from this overhyping of the silver market, then those steadfast accumulators, stackers, collectors will be able to experience much more reasonable premiums. But for now, it's almost like if you really believe price of silver are going to go up in the near term, then of course you need to be a buyer. But if you don't think that, I think maybe it's time to perhaps slow down your purchasing of items that shouldn't carry much of a premium and focus on the items that have an inherent premium always, because that premium in itself grows over time as a collector's item. So I would argue, yes, I have a vested interest in it, but I would argue that a great place, and that's, I'm putting my money where my mouth is to invest in items that already have a premium, where they're not as dependent on their underlying price of that silver as much as they are on the collectability of the coins themselves.
I think that is an excellent point and a really good strategy, because a lot of, stackers, even the most hardcore stackers, it gets boring after a while to buy nothing but American Silver Eagles. And with the premiums being what they are right now, so highly inflated compared to, any history that I know of, I think it does make a lot of sense to go for something that already has sort of a higher premium because it's a numismatic or semi-numismatic piece. And I know that Silver Conundrum has been also doing that, and he highlighted that on his channel. Do you want to talk about that for a second, Silver Conundrum?
Yeah, bro. Actually, I was waiting for a perfect time to chime in. So
Yeah.
That's exactly what I've been doing. I've been doing this for a while, man, and the premiums right now are crazy. It's premium versus spot, physical versus spot. And in my personal opinion, I don't like paying premiums. So I buy something that has, like y'all said, an intrinsic premium already built into it. And so what I do with that is I hide physical bullion premiums in a collector's piece. Collector's pieces typically don't go down in value. They may go down as low as what an individual paid for them, but they typically never go below that. So with that mindset, I buy those pieces and knowing within 3 to 6 months, I can flip them, take the profits and throw it at whatever I want to. And I don't actually have to invest that much money. Prime example is when I showed that video and recently of when I sold 2 premium coins and bought 20 ounces with it. I didn't pay no more than $325, I think it was, for that 20 ounces because I don't include the profit that I made. I just include that profit that was made as how do I put this? More of a payback on return. So I use that to buy my silver with, and the physical money that I put into it, that's how I figured what I pay for my 20 ounces. And it just makes more sense to me that way. If I can make more money on the overall product, so to speak, the end game justifies the means. So yeah, you're going to spend $150, $200 on a premium coin. And yeah, you could have possibly bought like 4 ounces with that. But in 6 months down the road, can you still sell your 4 ounces and make as much profit as you did if you bought that premium coin? So if you're going for weight and you're trying to hide premiums, that's the way to go. And like I said, in that video, I proved what I could do and how I did it. And another thing is paying cash for stuff. Like if you have retailers around you. Now, in a previous video, we talked about it, like the local stores, like bullion dealers, pawn shops, and stuff like that. Well,
Yes.
my buddy that lives next to me up here owns the pawn shop, but he's also a coin shop. So if I pay him in cash, I get just that much more of a discount. And here they want to try to charge taxes on bullion if you pay anything other than cash. So that's another benefit to doing what we do. Buying a premium coin, hold on to it 3 to 6 months, flip it, take your profits, go buy what you want to buy. And this way you're adding weight to your stack. You don't have to pay these stupid premiums, man. They're outrageous.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that what Alex mentioned about how much the silver squeeze situation has kind of backfired and has hurt the people who I guess were supposed to be in the long run actually helping. It really has backfired. I looked at some data from comparing the first 2 months of U.S. mint sales of American Gold Eagles, American Silver Eagles, and American Gold Buffaloes, comparing January 2021 and February 2021 to January 2020 and February 2020, and the numbers are outrageous.
Dude, they're
In
staggering.
in American Gold Eagle sales in January 2021, it was 1,692.9% higher than the previous year. So it was a all-time record.
Yep.
So, and so far the entire year is like over 400% higher than previous first 2 months of 2020. And for American Silver Eagles, it's the same story, 391% higher than the previous year. And same thing for American Gold Buffaloes. It's 1,500% higher sales than last year. So, and this is according to the U.S. Mint, So it seems like, and another thing that I find interesting is that over the past about, I want to say like 25 years or so, the U.S. has been a net exporter of gold, but 2020 was the first year in like a generation that it was a net importer. So it seems like there is a lot of new interest in physical silver and gold bullion. Alex, would you agree with that? Has that been your experience as well?
Well, certainly, as anyone who's interested in to a degree as a portion of the precious metals investment portfolio, you're looking at that type of items that are most akin to what can be classified as bullion. I'm certainly seeing that I'm chasing and more people are bidding on auctions and sellers are being less flexible when you're making them an offer, and that's across all platforms, and the asking prices are higher for the same things that they were. So the demand has absolutely skyrocketed and attracted a lot of new people to it. I just hope that it is of benefit to those that are ready to sell today. There's of course a lot of sentiment, and any society, any community will be split in its opinion, but a lot of people are saying, hold on to what you've accumulated now, because premiums or not, for all the other factors, additionally, we are expecting for silver prices to start appreciating in the near term. But there is always going to be a slice of the population that, for whatever reason, needs to sell some or all of their current holdings. And it is a pretty good time to sell, because we don't know if the spot is going to catch up to that premium, as Silver Conundrum said, anytime soon. But we do see what it is today. And so it is a maybe short term, but a good selling opportunity. And perhaps it could be an opportunity to buy later, again, at lower prices if the demand calms down a little bit. But the spot price kind of stays stable, and then you can reacquire similar items to what you had purchased before at those lower prices with the eroded premiums. So it could be a good strategy for some people as well, if they want to at least take part of their holdings and see if that makes sense for them. But yes, in general, the demand has increased tremendously. It's helped any business that is selling coins, selling bullion. Of course, at this time, as you can see, many of them, the larger ones, have put restrictions on the quantities that they can sell. They've put restrictions on just the number of individual items, on the total number of ounces. I've seen different things, different restrictions that different sellers have put on, because they just basically have sold out, and they also want to cater to their customers at least somewhat. So they're rationing things now. But I think it's a relatively short-term phenomenon with these bullion premiums, spot versus where the physical is, Silver Conundrum mentioned. But it has awoken many people to the idea that this is something they need to be paying attention to, not just by checking it once a day, the way they check the major stock indices or interest rates or currency exchange rates. This is an opportunity for them really to immerse themselves into something that I think any wise investor will always have a portion of their assets in.
Here's another thing people need to take into consideration too. Everybody's looking at the spot price itself, and like, if you ever notice in a delivery month, the spot price always drops dramatically, and almost every 3 months, you can actually physically watch a $2. I want to say it's between $2.50 and $2.80 price drop in silver, the spot price of silver, and it also correlates with every time there's a physical delivery month. And here's the funny thing about that: if I'm investing $30 an ounce in the silver, and I'm investing in the quantities because it's 5,000 ounces of silver for one trade. Think about this. If I drop the price to below what you paid for it, are you going to take physical delivery or are you going to roll it over? And that's what these people are actually doing at the COMEX. They're trying to drop the price low enough where you don't take physical delivery, because they don't want you to do that because they know they can't deliver it. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier. Is supply and demand. The supply is low and the demands are high. So how do you prevent people and dissuade them from taking physical form? You drop the physical price and you make them either they take a loss on paper, and I put that in quotations, or they roll it over to the next month and hope for a little bit better delivery. And the COMEX has been playing that card very hard and heavy since last year, especially. Because if you look at the market, the way the markets are running right now, look at what happened last year to this year, and then correlate what's going on right now in the silver markets, whether it be physical or paper, correlate it back to 2007, 2008, and part of 2009 timeframe. You will see a massive correlation on the charts, and they might not overlap exactly, but if you did take the charts and you overlap them chart over chart, you can see a correlation, how they flow in the same rhythm. And I personally think that we're going to see some silver prices go pretty decently soon based off of that information, because this isn't the first time this has ever happened.
Big run up in prices last time around actually happened more into late 2010. So supposedly when we were in recovery already, and there was just not enough faith perhaps in the stock market. There were just a lot of other factors that brought the attention to the silver market at that point. But this is when we saw those $40 ounces.
That's
almost.
right. That's exactly right.
And we're not at that point yet in the current cycle. And you're absolutely right on that front.
That's why I said, if you go back to 2008, 2009 timeframe, you'll start seeing how everything's slowly overlapping. And the cycle, it hasn't got there yet, but it's in the same cycle. The pattern's still there. And I believe silver's going to go back up north of 40, 50 bucks eventually. But I don't know the time frame it's going to do. It might take a couple of years like it did before. But once people start taking physical delivery from the COMEX and say they don't care if they take a loss, and once they start taking that physical, the COMEX is left holding the bag, so to speak. And like my local coin shop, they had a couple months ago, I haven't been there in a while, I called them up yesterday, but they said even they are on a silver shortage. Nobody's selling it. Everybody's doing nothing but buying. In fact, they were out of gold. I've never seen them run in the 3 years I've been here in Mississippi. I have never seen them not have silver, and I have never seen them not have gold. Now, she told me they have no gold and limited supply of silver, under a couple hundred ounces, which for them is unheard of. They said that people's coming in there buying silverware, like they actually physically have silverware, and people are buying that because they're that desperate to get their hands on it. So that's where I think the market's going to start seeing a big push, because since 2020, or so, matter of fact, since 2020, we've actually seen a physical cut in paper and physical, and we're seeing it again. Like right now, it's happening again. Like silver's at what, 25, 22 an ounce or something like that, $25, $26 an ounce. And the physical demand price is anywhere between $35 and $40 an ounce if you try to buy a physical piece of silver. And everybody's like, oh, that's a premium. And it really is if you base it off a spot. But if you look at the true value of what physical silver is running for, it really is running between 35 and $40 an ounce right now. And if you look at what's going on with the numismatic side of things, numismatics usually on average run for a decent numismatic coin, their premiums are going to run anywhere between $110 to $125 an ounce. So if you're looking at a 2-ounce Niue, you expect that coin to be about $250, $240 in that range somewhere, depending on what it is, base price. And we're seeing that right now. And to me, it's exciting. Like, it gets my blood pumping because I'm so excited about it. Hey man, don't judge me.
It's definitely exciting. I was wondering. I mean, by the way, this conversation, normally a lot of stackers who stack both silver and gold, they talk about the spot price, they talk about the gold to silver ratio. One thing, as people try to figure out how to navigate this as individual retail investors, one thing maybe to take away from this conversation so far is to start to not only think about the gold silver ratio, but the spot price to premium ratio as it relates to, commercial strikes of sovereign bullion coins like maples, kangaroos, American silver eagles versus those more numismatic coins that have a premium already built into them, to try and compare, historically over time, what the premiums are for those more stackable pieces of bullion versus a more numismatic coin. So then you can make the best decision for yourself. It also depends on your collection, your stack construction, and everything like that. But that might be one angle to start to consider it from as an individual. Now I wanted to ask you this, Alex. A lot of what we've been discussing so far is kind of focused on the United States and the COMEX and individuals in the United States. Now you're dealing with mints from all around the world. Have you heard anything from them about this situation with this squeeze or the increase in demand or anything, like what's going on in some of these other countries in Europe and other places?
Well, certainly wholesale prices for all of the later 2020 and 2021 coins have gone up, commensurate with the spot prices. So you mentioned delivery versus rolling. I mean, these are producers. That's their primary raw material. So they of course have to take delivery, and I hope that they have relatively sophisticated hedging programs in place, whether through a banker that assists them, or someone in-house that trades, that has access to yes, exchange, but just the futures market, right? It's ultimately you can access platforms even as a retail investor to trade futures. So hopefully they're doing some of that. They're certainly not increasing their wholesale prices much beyond what the spot prices have been. So they've gone up in a year anyway, even without these premiums. I'm not talking about them paying premiums. They're just, let's say, they are able to pay very close to that on paper spot or that futures contract that they entered into. Of course, they'll be able to pay that price. That's going to be their cost if they take delivery for that delivery month. So they have been in tune with that. They've prepared their dealers for that. And somehow intuitively, all of let's say you have two coins, for example, in the series. You have the 2019 and the 2020 Niue Mandala coins. One is called Elephant. Well, it has the portrayal of an elephant. One is an owl. Right? So it's a beautiful, intricate design, brightly painted with a crystal. Just a very, very nicely designed coin, which, by the way, I think is quite reasonably priced, especially the elephant one, which is beautiful to me. And you can still get it in the high 100s at this time. I think that's one coin that's certainly going to appreciate in the near future. And I think everybody who's into those coins should consider that if that's goes along with their style. But what has happened is that as producers, they have an equivalent of the MSRP, the manufacturer's suggested retail price, which is in their world is RRP, recommended retail price. And some of the mints do that, some of the mints don't do that. But the ones that do have significantly increased the recommended retail price on the coins that they're issuing in 2021 because they're seeing a huge demand for those coins by the dealers and by the dealers' customers, and they want to contain the minimum. They're not increasing their wholesale prices in response to that. They're just doing it, again, to be clear, they're doing it as they're following the price of silver. But those that have a retail arm, or those that just have one of their qualities of the relationships with them is that they do recommend retail prices. They will recommend that you set your, and request really, that you set your prices for 2021 coins considerably higher. I'm talking about 10 to 20% to 25% higher than you would have from the same coins in the series, not because of the any other reason, but the fact that they're oversubscribed and they want to continue their limited mintage to the stated amount, 500, 333, not dilute the value of those coins and maintain their high collectability, but also charge a higher premium. Now, the sellers are free to do what they want to do. Ultimately, if they have a private customer and they can negotiate with them differently. But as far as if you have an established channel of where you sell, if you have a point of sale somewhere, be it a brick and mortar or electronic, and that's they're following because they're seeing the dealers don't necessarily need that nudge from the mints either because they are seeing how high the demand is. So there is this ongoing relationship, of course, with the dealers and the mints, but certainly there's been a bump in price because of the demand and of these highly collectible coins, to a much smaller degree because of the increase in spot price of silver from a year ago. But in combination, we've seen that there's been a jump in many of these coins, a significant one in the last months when it comes to prices.
Right. So that's kind of looking at it from the supply side, and that's very interesting for us to hear. And how about for your customers? Do you have international customers?
Yes. So the customers that I've sold to and that continue to be repeat buyers are located in, there's been some mini concentrations of people in South Korea, in Australia, in Poland, a few in Russia, a couple in the Middle East, in the countries where import of gold and silver coins is not a restricted item and is allowed. There's certainly a lot of eager buyers, so it's always good to open up your willingness to deliver items to those countries if it's allowed by their local laws and import structures. So those are probably some of the countries that come to mind the most. There have been one-offs: Mexico, Argentina, certainly Canada, in many cases, especially since for a while I used to have a relatively high volume of Canadian coins for sale that were accumulated over the years, and combined with other folks that wanted to sell them as well. So we kind of put them on the market, and of course that attracted a lot of people in from Canada as well. But those are the countries where primarily people are reaching out from and where sales have happened.
Okay, very interesting. You mentioned South Korea, and that's where I am. And I have noticed that some of the coins that Silver Conundrum has purchased from you have also been available from a distributor here called Coins Today. Have you happened to sell with them?
No, I will certainly look them up. I have come across a seller based in South Korea, which I believe to be their website to be very professional. I don't remember the name right now. I have to go and I wouldn't even know exactly how to look them up right now other than keywords. But somehow in my research and after having sold a few coins to South Korean persons, I went to just to research a little bit who's available locally, and sellers on eBay that are based in Korea and went back to their store and then went back and researched them and looked up their website. And I found at least one that was very, very professional, had a ton of inventory, coins from all over the world, a lot of graded coins. And that was very interesting and pleasing to see that in another part of the world, you also have somebody that's selling not necessarily overlapping items, but items that you're familiar with. But this particular one, maybe it's the same one, but that doesn't reconcile in my mind right now that was the name of the website that I looked up before.
Yeah. No worries, no worries. I'm sure you have a ton of customers anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting for me as from the international perspective, and me being here in Korea, I've lived here for over a decade, and there's a really rich history of precious metals and art and jewelry and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of concentrated and renewed interest in it right now. So, and it sounds like that's actually happening in a lot of other countries as well. And do you find that some other countries, I mean, you had mentioned restrictions. Do you find that restrictions are an impediment into some countries to sell?
Well, I certainly don't want to break any rules established, let's say, by a country in the Middle East or in Asia because of the concern for the repercussions on those people. I can ship it to you, you paid me, and ultimately we can take the gamble that once it gets to customs, as a seller, I fulfilled my role, but I would also be doing something unethical and a disservice to you if you were not aware as a buyer of that, but I said, okay, you want it, you got it. The issue sometimes arises when, let's take the eBay example. The buyer's profile will say that they're located in the United States, and they make you an offer, or they buy the coin outright, or they win an auction, and then all of a sudden you're seeing the shipping address somewhere in China, and you cannot send silver to China. So, at least as far as I know, at least from what I've done my research with shipping couriers and just asking questions and doing online research. So I certainly don't want to put a person in that position. So it's really upon them to find a workaround that I can do my part legitimately. And in one example, that person knew somebody who was going to Los Angeles for a week, and we timed it so that I sent them the package to Los Angeles. Now, as a citizen of that country, perhaps they can bring something back with them, but as an international foreign business, or let's say not international, but foreign business to that country, I couldn't ship there. At least I know that for sure. So, of course, it's an impediment when 1.7 billion people are excluded from what you want to buy. I don't think India is a restriction, but I haven't had any customer in India. It's another huge market that I'd love to get some customers from. I also left out, by the way, Japan and UK from countries that I've amassed a few customers in. Also very popular in terms of collecting and having interest in the types of coins that we've been talking about, the numismatic ones. But back to the restrictions, I certainly don't want to put anybody in a position where they're going to be doing something that's not legitimate on their end. And I'm complicit in that too, of course, by sending it to them. Another part of it, of course, that's a challenge is value-added taxes or any sort of import fees that the buyer has to incur. Now, of course, you don't want to break any rules, any laws, but there are considerations to be made as far as declared value, for example. And if somebody paid you more than the value of that item and you're going to declare less, that helps them out. But that's at best a gray area. So there are challenges, and on this scale that we're in, it's not, we're not in a position to set up local outlets, so to speak, to conduct commerce in a way that complies with local laws and doesn't constitute some sort of an import transaction when it's allowed in principle. But all of these things, of course, are an impediment. So if it's a very private transaction, there is, of course, the most flexibility. If you go to a social media channel and you negotiate privately, and you get the money wired to you privately, and you mail it to their address, and you don't cut corners, but at the same time you do find ways to take advantage of that flexibility that you have on social media channels like Facebook, like Instagram, then probably you have the most flexibility. But it is also kind of most casual, at least professional, if you will. It's almost like a friend-to-friend transaction, acquaintance-to-acquaintance transaction. But overall, of course, any of these restrictions are an impediment, and the strictest ones you don't want to break, of course.
Right, right. And it can be, a minefield to try to navigate all these different countries that have all of these different obscure rules. One of actually the first guest that we had on this podcast from Australia, and one of the interesting things that he said to us is that if a foreign coin is imported to Australia and it's not 3 nines fine, then there is a tax on it. Like, so for example, American Gold Eagles or Krugerrands, right? They're not 3 nines fine gold, so there would be a tax imposed on those. Here in Korea, there's a distinction between if a coin is legal tender for a certain country, or if it's not legal tender. So generic bullion has a higher rate at which it's taxed on imports, and just so many different rules. Like you mentioned, China, I guess they're not allowed to import silver, and there's a lot of YouTubers who do like giveaways and things like that. And somebody was in Portugal, and you can't send any bullion through the mail there, I guess. And it's really difficult to know all the rules. So I feel for you in that regard. But
it is also very rewarding, however, knowing that somebody found you literally from halfway around the world, and that they waited for an item, even if you send it expedited, not the most expedited service because that would be hundreds of dollars, but taking advantage of eBay shipping discounts, or opening a business account like Pitney Bowes, Stamps.com, whatever, taking advantage of some of the discounts there, or finding any other way with FedEx, UPS, again, business accounts, and you get some discounts. But regardless, the shipping cost is always going to be considerably higher. But somebody's willing to wait a week or 2 or 3 for the item to get there, potentially clear customs, potentially go somewhere to pick it up. But yet they were still interested in it enough to reach out to a seller in the US and procure it from them. It's a very rewarding feeling when everything works out. And if something ever hasn't worked out, there's probably 1 or 2% of transactions that always have some sort of a challenge with, maybe a little bit higher on occasion. You want to make it right. So I'm always, when it's somebody from another part of the world, not that I don't want to make it right for everyone in the US, but I'm much more sensitive to their patience and to the other just work that they have to put in a lot of times to get their item in their hands. So if there's any concern or any issue, I am almost proactively, almost all the time, I should say proactively, or checking in with them, asking them, updating them, because I appreciate the fact that they've entrusted somebody from so far away from them to do something and to help them build their collection. So everything has to go right, and if it doesn't go right, you have to make it right for them as much as you can.
Yeah, and I mean, you did that with Silver Conundrum, and that was the basis for your guys' relationship. And I could tell you, from my perspective, that goes a long way, because I also have ordered things from overseas, and sometimes you're just sitting there wondering what's going on. So if the dealer is proactively updating you and taking care of the situation to keep you updated and informed, I can promise you that the customer definitely really appreciates that. I have one other kind of quick question, just to change the direction a little bit here. In terms of the recent fluctuations with the price, one thing I've noticed recently, on more than one occasion, I've seen that the larger bullion dealers like APMEX and others have pulled their inventory down for a period of time, and then put them back after several hours. In terms of high price fluctuation, it seems like that's why they've done that. I'm guessing, I'm just kind of speculating because of something you said earlier in the previous part of this episode, where they have, kind of thin profit margins. They have a lot of overhead and things like that. So I'm guessing that they're very price sensitive. But do you have any guess as to why they do that?
Well, I think that in times of high volatility or uncertainty, taking a pause is something that could be frustrating to buyers that want to take advantage and capitalize of something, especially the buyers that are driving that volatility in the upward If they're let's say long that asset, right? If they're long that item, if they're interested in acquiring and buying it, right? They'll be very frustrated if somebody all of a sudden doesn't have anything available to them for other reason than they are sold out, and now you just have to go look elsewhere, right? But if they're saying, hold on, we have to wait and see where things go, I think these types of institutions are cornerstones of the business, and therefore, if they're saying we're putting the brakes on it, I certainly, well, I wasn't necessarily running to their sites to buy up all the bullion I could get my hands on at the moment. So, we can take that, kind of as part of why my opinion is formed. That wasn't my thought. My thought was perhaps similar to theirs, is that I have to wait and see where it goes. Because if all of a sudden price of silver jumps doubly, it's not sustainable. Nothing can stay up there that long without some underlying factors being true, right? So all it's going to do is it's going to make some people buy something at very high prices, and then things can drop. And in their case, when they have transaction costs, right, through like just credit card transactions and money clearing through banks and everything like that in very high volumes, if prices dip all of a sudden in response to that, if the that spring is wound too tightly and all of a sudden it's let loose and everybody's saying, okay, sell, sell, sell for a few days, they might find themselves in a place where they're not financed correctly at the moment to buy more silver, or their margins, their profit margins, or at least break-even points aren't covered. So I think them putting a pause on that was a healthy thing. And I necessarily, again, I'm a drop in the ocean here, and what we're doing is very nascent at the moment. But that was never a thought that crossed my mind, like, hey, hold on, we could pull something back because I could sell this for double tomorrow. No, that's not the motivation. I think the only justifiable motivation, which is people like those that AppMax or other huge sellers would have, is that they're saying there's just too much unhealthy movement going on, too much sensationalism, too much information coming from unestablished or kind of maybe hysteria-driven sources at the moment, and therefore we just need to pump the brakes on this for a moment and get back to business as usual, because it's not in the interest ultimately of anyone to profiteer from it over a 24-hour span. So, and I also think they probably need to rethink how they will open their available inventory if this continues for a prolonged period of time. So do they need to put a limit of one per household, or X number of ounces per person, or whatever the case might be? I think at moments like that, established businesses do have to give some thought to their immediate tactics, but also perhaps add to their or longer term strategy of how they're selling and how they're sustaining their business. So I think it was a healthy thing overall for their business, but also to kind of slow down this overly abundant excitement that was happening over those few days.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't even actually think about it, that they could actually be protecting the customer in some ways, depending on how things worked out. I definitely can understand why the customers are frustrated by the situation, but I think hearing your perspective from it kind of shed some new light on it, and I definitely agree. I mean, I've joined the Wall Street Silver group, and yeah, I mean, you definitely need to vet the information that you see coming out of there. Hysteria is a good word to use, and it's cool. It's great to see a lot of excitement, and but my concern is that a lot of new people are getting into this with the wrong ideas and the wrong intentions, and as you mentioned earlier, when things
misinformation.
Yeah, and also just the wrong expectations of what's going to happen or why they're doing it, and as we've seen many times, and as you've mentioned, when something increases exponentially very quickly and rapidly, it also falls in that manner. And I think it would be better if we had a lot of these people joining and staying in silver and not leaving with a bad taste in their mouth in silver and gold. But I'm not sure that that's going to happen based on what I'm seeing in the group. So, but I also see some different voices emerging in that group, and I'm also trying to contribute a different perspective in that group. So we'll see how it turns out. But I also think that you bring up a very good point, which is that AppMex and these other large online bullion distributors, they have a business model which was operating on the recent trends, the most recent trends, and they can scale up and scale down over long periods of time, but they cannot react. They're not small enough to be so agile to react to this extreme volatility. And it looks like it's probably going to be a temporary thing. So it doesn't make sense for them to make permanent adjustments. Last year, they did place, I think, some restrictions on temporarily on orders. You had to make a minimum quantity order or a certain value, like $200 or something like that, and they had shipping delays and things like this. And it had gone on for several weeks, and I thought to myself, why don't you hire more employees or do whatever you have to do to adjust? But I kind of realized over time when I thought about it more that this is unusual. When I started looking at some of the data, I realized that it's unusual, and from their perspective, it makes more sense to treat it as sort of a temporary thing. And if it continues and goes on longer and longer and longer, then I guess they will adjust. But at least that's how I've kind of looked at the situation over this whole time. So hearing your perspective on it is enlightening. So Silver Conundrum, did you want to chime in with anything here?
No, man. Oh, I'm just waiting for us to get to a good stopping point because I got a question I want to ask him when we get there.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I think now would be a great time for that.
Okay, so I was looking at some of the new coins coming out. There's going to be a Dragon Phoenix coin. There's a couple other Dragon coins I'm looking at too. Are you looking at getting any newer stock in the near future by chance? Mint 21, I can't remember if Mint 21 or Mint of Poland has a Dragon Phoenix coin, and I'm partial to dragons, so I'm just wondering, like, if you get anything with dragons on it in the near future, so I can start saving up some money.
Yes, so aware of your interest in dragons on coins, and certainly keep that in mind when thinking of upcoming things and sharing with you the information. The short answer is yes. Planning to acquire. That's April, May, June releases. I think the Dragon and Phoenix coin, or Phoenix and Dragon coin, are going to be out in sometime in the middle of that range in May. It's a 50-gram coin, so not quite 2 ounces, which will make it a little bit more affordable as well, because these premiums are sort of commensurate with the weight of the coin and a little bit somewhat proportional to that, I should say. But that should be a great value, and very nicely, robustly painted, beautiful coin. Seen the images of it, haven't obviously held one in my hand, but yes, planning to acquire that one. I would also, from what I've seen recently, there are 2 other coins that come to mind. One more because of personal interests, and again, maybe I shouldn't be too biased on that front, but I'm certainly a fan of that style and genre. And one because I think that's going to be a huge, huge hit based on some of the factors that we discussed in the previous episode as well. And namely, there's one coin that's coming out. It's a 2-ounce coin, but it's going to be quite large with a 70-millimeter diameter. It's going to be called World's Greatest Porcelain. It's going to be a gold-plated silver coin with a porcelain, with a dragon on that porcelain vase attached to the coin, actually. So you might be want to look at that. So that's another one that comes to mind.
Is that kind of like the one I got from you that has the dragon on it with the white base on it?
The vase is not as large relative to the surface of the coin, but yes, the idea is the same, that it commemorates and celebrates great porcelain works, of course, that primarily ties back to Chinese styles. But that's at least that one, because of the way it's worded also, and I'm dropping a little bit of a hint here, is World's Great Porcelain. Sounds to me like it could be a part of a series. And gold-plated coins, even though everybody knows they're not gold, they're gold-plated coins, have some allure to them as well and command a premium over non-gold-plated coins usually, perhaps because of the application, perhaps because it's just, it's more attractive to the eye. But that one is interesting, but that's more for those that are into art and pottery and all of that. So there is, that's one of my personal favorites that are coming up, and I'm looking forward to that. But another one that I would highly recommend that everyone consider is the Shaolin, which is styles of martial arts. Now, Mint 21 has announced that it's going to be a first in the series, so they're telegraphing that a little bit. And I've seen some pre-sales already in the mid 300s for that coin. I don't know if they're necessarily selling it. I'm looking at purely for eBay, but I would highly recommend that folks pay attention to that coin, save it, see where prices are, look at his recent sale history. But I would anticipate that one appreciating quite nicely as it becomes available, and that's somewhere middle to late spring, I believe, as well.
Huh. We might have to get up after this show so I can see which ones you're talking about with the dragon stuff. Just saying.
Yeah. Another couple that already are available for sale now, and get them at best price that you can. They're the ancient Chinese warriors. That's
oh, yes. I'm familiar with them. I already got some coming from you.
Yep. So the second coin actually made a bigger splash because of probably more intricately colored background with the blues and the it's almost like a cobalt blue in the background mixed with other colors. It's just a very striking coin. Also, the general riding the horse, Zhang Fei, is probably designed with a little bit more detail as far as the face and the beard and the horse and what's going on around him. But the first coin, Lu Bu, is a little bit more understated, a little bit more monochromatic, but I don't think stock pictures really do justice. I'm actually in the process of taking some photographs of one of those coins, and I actually have it. I have it listed, but I'm not trying to tell you to go and buy it from me. I'm just saying that it's hard to convey the beauty of that coin through stock images. It's one of those cases where I don't think they got it right. So that coin's lagged a little bit behind it. But the reason I'm mentioning those two is that not on the reverse, not on where the main picture is, but on the obverse of the coin, where you have all the denomination and stuff like that, there's quite a nice dragon surrounding like blades and the queen's portrait on those coins as well. So you mentioned dragons. I'm just thinking what stands out to me that has dragons on it. Those are some of the coins that come to mind.
I had to laugh when Silver Conundrum said that because it just sound like a kid. You have anything with dragons on it?
Hey, man, I cannot help it. I like dragons, okay? Don't judge me.
No,
I have
man.
liked them since I was a kid.
Yeah. No, everybody likes
If
dragons.
if it's got a dragon on it, I try to acquire it.
Yeah. And if anyone sees your collection of dragon coins and bullion, then they can't laugh. They just have to be in awe because it is pretty impressive. The Shaolin coin sounds really awesome. There's actually, I think, two kind of genres maybe going on there with martial arts and dragons and stuff like that. So that would be a pretty cool one to look at, I think. All right, so it's been a very interesting discussion. Once again, very eye-opening, and I've just really appreciated it. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this one up?
No, we talked a lot about investing side of things and prices and premiums. One just additional small point I want to make going back to people being frustrated that AppMex, for example, put a stop on the on sales of bullion. At the height of all of that excitement, at the peak of it, let's say, right now for a 10-ounce bar, you're looking to pay perhaps what, $330, $320, $340, something like that, as the prices of silver gone down a little bit. Perhaps the cost has gone down as well. At the peak, and we consider that high. We're saying that's a 15, almost 20% potentially premium over the spot price. Imagine if you were someone who was willing to buy silver or looking to buy silver at the time, at the peak of all of that excitement. Wouldn't you be willing to pay $400, $500 for that same bar? Imagining that any day now, the price of silver is going to go to $60, $80, and the premiums are going to be even greater on top of that. So to all of those who were upset by that momentary blockade, if you will, that some of these sellers put on it, I think a lot of people actually benefited from not being able to buy, because even though we're still dealing with these premiums, those prices have gone down to more of a normal range, considerably more. So that's just the last point on that. But other than that, I enjoy this tremendously as well, and I hope that this is useful information for collectors and anyone really interested in coins and numismatics and silver and gold.
Great. Really, really appreciate it. And I agree with that last point that you made there as well. So we just want to thank you once again for spending the time and sharing your knowledge, your experience, and your wisdom with us. And we want to thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Silvercast, and we will catch you all in the next one.
Thank you.
Later, everyone.